And in the corner with a bottle of rum. Watch me blow. Tonight I'll be the death of you all right, man, that's a sample of the new CD from GG Allin Bloody Mess featuring the Skabs. And that, my friends, is Angel and Mona doing backup vocals on Cherry Love Affair. I'm talking about that because the guy that recorded this very EP and the recordings made in January 1989 was a man by the name of the legendary H. His name was Bill Hill, and the legendary H had nothing to do with drug references. I think it stood for Hill, H-I-L-L, Bill Hill, who came from Enid, Oklahoma, right? And I'm going to tell you the story about how the legendary H went to jail because of me. Sometimes you notice how a story is really told in the backstory, like the stuff leading up to the story, or a lot of the information regarding something that builds up to a story kind of is the story. So that's what this deal is, right? Back in 1989, 90, 91, I was kind of floating around. I'd say 89 to 90 primarily, living in different places and always keeping in touch with my friends in my little punk rock circle. You know, GG and I were really close. GG Allin, I'm talking about the shock rocker, of course, and my old friend. Well, I found myself in a position where I had nowhere to live, and I was dating a girl for about 5 years, and that girl's name was Angel, and she's one of the singers on this CD doing backing vocals on Cherry Love Affair, right? So me and Angel had lived together for about 5 years on and off, and pretty much on, right? But it got to be a little rocky, rough and rocky traveling, so we ended up splitting ways. I found myself looking for a place to live and starting some new adventures in my life. I reached out and found my old buddy, the legendary H. He was the guy that started Bloody Mess and the Skabs with me in 88, 89, was the original biker punk from hell. The legendary H, Bill Hill, moved to Peoria, Illinois from Enid, Oklahoma. He was a Harley riding, punk rock listening, beer drinking, total one-of-a-kind dude, right? Very stoic, extremely stoic, with a killer sense of humor. And he was just a great friend, very trustworthy and honest. Very honest, actually. I'll never forget the time he told me that when I went to work, my girlfriend tried to screw him. And he's like, yeah, I can't lie to you, man, Bloody. She actually told me I looked like I'd be a good fuck. I'm like, oh, man, thanks for telling me, bro. But yeah, he was that kind of friend, the kind you could count on, right? Well, I needed somewhere to live, and H was in the Skabs, but he was before the Skabs even put a record out. We would rehearse and sit around and write these songs like... Lawless and, biker punks from hell and other little ditties, ugly friends, things like that. But Biker Punks from Hell was the song that I wrote with him in the band before the Skabs. But when we actually put that band together to play gigs and do records and stuff with that intent, he said, nope, I'm too punk rock for that. I don't want to do gigs in front of people or spend time making records. I'm just going to keep it in the jam house and just watch you guys from the sidelines. Well, he did. So we ended up getting Ugly Ted, who played bass in Bloody Mess and the Skabs, along with others down the road. But Ugly Ted is mostly the bass player that's remembered and that I remember too. Shout out to Ted. So the legendary H and I get back together. We start talking again. It'd been a little while. Said he had an opening in the apartment that he was renting over on Bradley Street in Peoria. And he had a room he wanted to rent, a.k.a. having a roommate. I said, I'm in, man. So I moved in the house with legendary H. We started rekindling our friendship from the days when the Skabs first started. We were doing a lot of drinking. I was doing a lot of gigs at the time, so I'd be gone a lot. We'd be touring here and there. And then me and Angel started kind of getting back together, sort of. And she started hanging out with me again and staying overnight and coming around. And, we were always had a mutual attraction and fondness for each other. Well, H was doing a lot of drinking, and so was I. Drink, partying, a lot of late nights. And back in my room, I had like this dungeon-like room, like in the very back of the place. You take a left, there's a big thick curtain. You open that big curtain, there was like a little secret room that I rented. And it was really dark and awesome. I had candles and incense everywhere, and I had records, and it was very dark, black lights, the whole deal. And I would always have people back there, and we'd just sit around and party for days on end and hide out from the world, man, you know? And there was an alley right behind the house. It was just, it was literally, also behind the house was the garage where Bloody Mess and the Skabs rehearsed. So when I went to rehearsal, I just walk outside and walk upstairs to the band house, and we rehearsed there. Anyway, we always partied a lot, and me and Angel had a kind of a crazy relationship at this point that was bound not to last. But I was at one of the peaks of my drunkenness and losing my temper a lot, and these things that I really don't want to bring to the surface. But when I started this channel, it was with the intent of doing videos which represent chapters of my life, and this is one of those. So I'm trying to clean out the cobwebs in my mind and kind of get all this stuff out on the table so I can just wipe it off the table and go on to other stuff, because I do have other stories. But we started partying one particular night, and I was drinking the hard liquor, man, which I knew better. I knew better. You know what I mean? And H was doing his own thing, man. I don't even think he was aware that we were drinking, because he's the kind of guy that would just get comatose drunk. Like, he would just get so plastered he couldn't even talk. And he had a big appetite for the booze, man, and the beer, and he could just drink himself into a coma, almost literally, right? And hate to say, by the way, the legendary H passed away just, a few years ago from, I think, cirrhosis. And I hate to say it, but I'll never forget him. He's one of those guys you can't forget. He was a one of a kind. So rest in peace, brother Bill Hill. H, the legendary H. We are partying one night. Me and Angel are back in my room drinking, and H is back in his room drinking. Well, me and Angel started getting into a little kind of argument, like a verbal altercation sort of thing. And I started getting kind of blacked out drunk, kind of wasted, and not sure if it was tequila that night or what it was, but it was definitely, it flipped my switch. And I'm not proud of any of this stuff, so don't hold it against me, man. I'm speaking from the past. I'm like the ghost of Halloween past. Anyway, we're drinking, and I'm pretty much getting kind of verbally abusive, and I'm like, basically, she wanted to leave, and I was like, no, you're not leaving, I'm not letting you leave. And it got to be one of those situations, and it got to be pretty ugly. No physical shit happened, but there was a lot of stuff being broken physically, like smashed in the room. I was probably very threatening, probably scaring the crap out of her. So at one point, she literally said, I'm calling 911. And she called 911. And we ended up saying, hey, man, it's all good. Nope, no problem. And even she did. She's like, oh, God, we don't want a bunch of cops here. I shouldn't have called them. Well, next thing you know, they were like, well, we're going to have to send somebody. We're like, no, we're all good. She gets on the phone. No, it's cool. We were having a little fight, but we're good now. Well, that's not how it works. I had to find out the hard way. So 911, if you call them, no matter what happens, even if things are good, they will come to make sure they're good, which is good. It's a safety precaution for people that are being abused or people that are being held against their will or something. It wasn't like I wouldn't let her leave, but it was like she was afraid to leave, and I also wouldn't let her leave, like, verbally. I'm like, you're not leaving. No, we got to get this discussed and take care of this, and God damn it. And I was just very drunk and belligerent. The legendary H had passed out earlier in the evening, I believe, and he was just completely out like a light. And when that guy passed out, it was just like lights out for about 12 solid hours, You couldn't wake him up at all. I'm the kind of guy you just go like that, and I'm awake, right? So me and Angel are having this fight, man, and it's getting ugly. She's yelling. I'm yelling. She's wanting to leave. I don't want her to leave. She'd already called 911. I decided, screw her, man. I'm just not even going to worry about it. We just kind of went out and locked the main door of the house in the living room that people knock on. Went all the way back through the other house. The house had 2 living rooms in the front, and then there's like one in the very back. It was a large old house, and it was partitioned, right? So my little dungeon-like room is in the very back, and, you wouldn't even know I was in there because I had blackout curtains, so there was never any lights to be seen. We're back there. She's trying to split. I'm pretty much being very possessive and drunk. I'm smashing stuff in the room. I'm breaking vinyl records, things I would never do in a million years, but I had already passed the point of no return. Oh, God. A Kansas song in the middle of your spiel? Bad taste, bloody. Bad taste. Well, guess what happens? Fast forward to about a minute later, 5 minutes later, I'll say, okay, 5 or 10 at that. All of a sudden, there's a bunch of pounding on the front doors, man, and we are tweaking because neither one of us want to answer it. Neither one of us want cops there. No one was holding her captive. It was just that it was a verbal thing that had escalated to where she was afraid of me, man, because I have a really bad temper when I drink, which I don't drink anymore. Anyway, the cops were banging on the walls, banging on the side of the house. They were at the door saying, we're going to break down the door if you don't open it. That kind of stuff. And I was like, oh my God. So I didn't know what to do. Angel was like, you deal with it, you know? And she's back in the bedroom with like doing this kind of thing. Like her nerves are shot from this nightmare here, drinking crazy punk rock guy, breaking stuff everywhere, yelling. And then all of a sudden the cops are banging on the door. So she didn't know what to do. And I just thought, oh my gosh. So we went back to the bedroom for a second to just try to pretend we could just walk away from this problem, right? Guess what happens? The legendary H is somehow roused from his stupor, doesn't have any clue what's going on, doesn't know we're even in the house, doesn't know that I'm wasted, doesn't know she called 911. He goes to the front door and thinks the cops are there and harassing him and they got the wrong person because obviously he was asleep. There's no one there but him. And he goes out there and starts telling those cops, hey, you guys F yourselves, man. Because he was like the kind of guy that wore leather pants and leather jacket like all the time, even when he was sleeping. And he had hair down past his ass and just very stoic and the kind of guy you wouldn't want to mess with either. He was probably 3/4 Native American, I think Cherokee. I'm not positive, but he looked very Native American. So much respect for that cat. He starts going off on these cops and they start freaking out thinking maybe this is the guy that the girl called on that made this 911 call and where's the girl and he's out here telling us to F off and he starts just going off on them, wouldn't open the door, had the screen door open. They yank that freaking screen door open. That's when I walk in the room and I'm like, hey, H, it was too late, man. They grabbed him, started tackling him. There's like 3 cops. They literally had to wrestle him because he was fighting them. He was fighting the cops, man, thinking, I didn't do anything, you son of a bitches. And he's yelling this. And I'm like pleading his innocence. And I'm in the background going, oh my God, what have we done? What have I done? And Angel's like, oh my God, it was just a nightmare. He's like one of our best friends. And all of a sudden, he's handcuffed. He's shackled. He's being abused and hurt on the ground. He's screaming at him. Doesn't have any idea what's happening, right? And they put him in the back of a paddy wagon and drive him to jail. Yep. And I don't remember exactly what happened after that because those cops ended up talking to us for sure. But we ended up telling him, you got the wrong guy. I was the guy, but everything's cool here. Here's the chick. Here's the dude. We're good. And she came out and said, yeah, we're all cooled down now that you took our friend to freaking jail for no reason whatsoever. So the poor H-ster, legendary H, gets yanked to jail. And then I had to get on the phone and start calling people in the middle of the night to try to get someone to bail him out ASAP if I wanted to keep my life. I just didn't want him to get out of jail knowing that it was my fault he went there. But I didn't tell him to open the door. I didn't say, hey, man. But at the same time, it was his house. So, yeah, man, that was a really stupid thing that happened. And he was mad at me for a long time after that. But he never stopped being friends with me. But he never let me forget the night that that he went to jail for me. A bloody mess. Sending my friend to jail. Thanks for being here, man. I hope you enjoyed that little tale. Just another one that's been on my mind. Please like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. But more importantly, please subscribe to the channel. It helps an old rocker make a few bucks. And I do have more tales coming from the recesses of my cobweb-embedded mind. GG Allin, Bloody Mess, and the Skabs. There's the legendary H right there on the front cover, man. Sorry about this. There you go. The guy with the long hair that Gigi's hugging. That's H. He did not want to smile there. You can tell he's fighting back, man. He's fighting back the smile, man. Anyway, if you're interested in this 4 Sheets to the Wind CD, my email address is in the description area. Hit me up. It comes with a 1980s flyer from a show me and Gigi did. It's signed. And let me know if you're interested. Thanks for being here, my friends. Have a great rest of your week. The weekend's coming up soon. And I'll hope to be back again tomorrow evening. Almost for sure. Cheers.